Stepmom's false assault, claims and lies, cost me my inheritance. Hello, everyone. Today, I want to share a story about how my stepmother's deceit nearly cost me everything, only for the truth to finally surface 7 years later. When I turned 21, my stepmother accused me of something I didn't do, all to block me from inheriting my father's estate. My dad, believing her lies, cut me off entirely. It took 7 long years before the truth came to light and my name was cleared. Let's rewind to where it all began. My parents divorced when I was 9 years old, and they both continued to be a part of my life, sharing custody of me. I spent my weekdays with my mom and weekends with my dad. Despite their separation, they both remained loving and supportive, which helped me cope with the situation. A couple of years later, when I was 11, my dad met a woman named Gina, who would later become my stepmother. At first, she seemed kind, and my dad was obviously happy with her. Gina had twin daughters, Emma and Emily, who were 14 at the time. The twins, raised without their father, often acted out and demanded attention in disruptive ways. Being more of an introvert, I kept to myself and observed their behavior quietly. After a year of dating, my dad and Gina decided to marry when I was 12. Even my mom attended the wedding, and I was excited to see our family growing. Initially, I thought things were going smoothly with my new stepmother. But a few months after the wedding, Gina sat me down one morning and admitted that she didn't like me. She said we needed to pretend to get along for my dad's sake, but she preferred I stayed out of her way whenever he wasn't around. She confessed that seeing me reminded her too much of my mom, and that made it hard for her. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I had hoped we could have a positive relationship. The twins, who had overheard our conversation, later teased me, saying my dad didn't care about me and that he loved them more. I was devastated and confided in my mom, who immediately called my dad to confront him. My dad assured her that Gina would never say such things and believed I had misunderstood the situation. The next time I visited my dad, Gina acted distant. She remained quiet in front of him, but as soon as he left, she confronted me, warning that if I ever told my mom anything about her again, she would make sure I lost my relationship with my dad. She also threatened that she would leave my dad and take all his money, leaving him with nothing if I didn't keep quiet. I was just 12 years old, and her threats terrified me, so I agreed to stay silent. From that moment on, Gina made it her mission to make my life difficult. Whenever we were alone, she would say hurtful things, and I stayed quiet, hoping her behavior would eventually stop. She insulted my appearance and tried to make me feel worthless. I desperately wished my dad would notice, but he remained oblivious. He believed Gina and I had a good relationship and often insisted that I spend time with her and the twins. When we went out to eat, Gina would use my dad's money to pay for everyone's meal, but I was only allowed to order something small, like soup or dessert. I would sit there feeling miserable as they enjoyed their meals. Later, Gina would send me to bed hungry, and I would cry myself to sleep, both starving and emotionally drained. As time went on, I grew more and more frustrated with my dad and stepmother. I dreaded visiting my dad on weekends and started making excuses to stay with my mom instead. My parents noticed my reluctance, and my dad would call, expressing his sadness about not spending time with me. My mom would ask if something was wrong, but I kept my fears to myself, still intimidated by Gina's threats. When I was 14, my dad planned a family trip to Greece and insisted I join them. I was hesitant, but my mom encouraged me to go, saying it would be a great experience. Reluctantly, I agreed. As expected, Gina played the role of the caring stepmother in front of my dad, asking about school and pretending to be interested in my life. However, she continued to make subtle, hurtful comments disguised as jokes. For instance, when I mentioned playing basketball, she would suggest that I might be too short for the sport, even though I was already quite tall for my age. She would then recommend that I focus on my studies if I wanted to succeed in life. The twins would smirk and call me names, even though I consistently outperformed them academically. My dad noticed the tension, but dismissed it as harmless teasing, telling me not to take it too seriously. During our vacation, Gina frequently told my dad that I lacked a sense of humor and needed to lighten up. One day, her and the twins teasing about my weight while I was at the pool pushed me too far. I snapped back, pointing out the twins' double chins and joking about Gina's bikini making her look like a penguin. Gina fled to the hotel room in embarrassment, and the twins lashed out at me, calling me sexist. Later, my dad was furious, accusing me of disrespecting Gina. Despite my protests that they had mocked me first, he forced me to apologize to her, who was crying in the bathroom. Gina and the twins made a show of accepting my apology, but when I got home, I told my mom everything. She threatened to involve CPS if Gina ever made comments about my appearance again, which seemed to silence Gina. When I was 16, I stayed with my dad and Gina while my mom was away. Gina complained about the extra meal preparation, so I decided to cook dinner for everyone. Gina's friends were impressed with the meal, but Gina herself ranted about how annoying I was and how she couldn't wait until I turned 18. She even admitted to her friends that she hoped I would fail at cooking so she could blame me for something. I was taken aback because I was only trying to be polite. Over the years, Gina's hostility towards me grew. During college breaks, she would ignore me entirely, scheduling family events without me and berating me if I was late. She invaded my privacy, barging into my room while I was sleeping and searching through my belongings without permission. Despite this, I kept to myself and made an effort to spend time with my dad. When I turned 21, my dad invited me to visit, saying he had important news. My mom encouraged me to go, so I agreed. When I arrived, my dad greeted me warmly, and we drove home. He told me he would share his news at dinner. At the meal, he expressed pride in his family and announced he had made a will. Gina and the twins perked up at the mention of a will. Dad revealed he was leaving their house to Gina, while I would inherit his retirement account and a cherished vintage car. Gina's joy turned to discontent as the focus shifted to me. She and the twins seemed displeased, particularly because they felt I was getting more than they deserved. The twins voiced their disappointment, and Gina argued that I should get less since I could manage on my own. The argument escalated, and Gina began to cry, claiming she had endured so much to protect the family. Amidst her sobs, she accused me of inappropriate behavior during a past vacation, alleging I had acted uncomfortably towards her and even tried to barge into her room. I was stunned and tried to defend myself against these false accusations, but Gina continued to cry and elaborate on her fabricated story. My dad was confused and concerned, looking between me and Gina, clearly unsure of what to make of the situation. For years, I had remained silent, fearing that speaking out might disrupt the family. But when Gina accused me of inappropriate behavior, I couldn't hold back any longer. I yelled at her, calling her delusional and vehemently denying any wrongdoing. Gina responded by declaring that she had kept quiet for too long and needed to reveal the monster I supposedly was. The twins joined in, hurling accusations of being a predator and molester. My mind was spinning. It felt like a nightmare as a once pleasant evening devolved into chaos. Desperate for support, I looked to my dad, but he was silent, struggling to process Gina's claims. When he asked her if her accusations were true, Gina nodded and insisted that as his wife, he should trust her. I pleaded with my dad, pointing out that Gina had never spoken up before and that she was only fabricating stories now because of the inheritance issue. Gina claimed she had kept silent because she feared no one would believe her due to my age and her role as a stepmother. She insisted she had done it all to protect the family. By now, I was in tears, begging my dad not to believe Gina's lies. The realization that Gina could create such a monstrous lie about me was devastating. My dad's hesitation and the support Gina received from the twins only intensified my hurt and betrayal. My dad ultimately told me to leave the house until things were sorted out, a blow that left me feeling abandoned. I packed my things and went straight to my mom, who was shocked to see me and enraged by the whole situation. She wanted to confront Gina, but I urged her not to, fearing Gina's vindictive nature. I decided to cut ties with my dad permanently, believing he didn't deserve a place in my life after siding with Gina. My mom informed me that my dad had called her, expressing shame and a desire to reconnect, but she was unable to convince him otherwise. My dad's side of the family, misled by Gina, also attacked my mom, accusing her of raising a deviant. Despite the turmoil, I tried to move on, but Gina and the twins continued to harass me with threatening messages, which led me to change my number. The harassment had a profound impact on me, making me fearful of being accused again and affecting my personal and professional life. My mom was my rock during this time, and with her support, I began to heal. Eventually, I met Mara, who brought joy and stability back into my life. My mom adores her, and together, they have given me the strength to rebuild. Recently, I received an unexpected call from my dad after nearly 7 years. He sounded older and remorseful, explaining that Gina had been cheating on him with his best friend. Upon confronting Gina, she confessed that she had fabricated the accusations against me to clear the path for her and her daughters to benefit from my dad's wealth. This revelation led to a divorce, and my dad wanted to reconnect and make amends. Despite his apology, I told him I wanted nothing to do with him, feeling that his abandonment and belief in Gina's lies had irrevocably damaged our relationship. Since then, I've been bombarded with calls from my dad and his family, urging me to reconcile, but I feel no obligation to explain myself to those who turned their backs on me. In the past 6 months, my life has taken a positive turn. I proposed to Mara, and she said yes. We're considering moving closer to my mom, as it would be beneficial for our future. I've also started therapy, which has been instrumental in my healing process. I'm focusing on the positive aspects of my life, grateful for the unwavering support of Mara and my mom. Despite the painful past, I'm looking forward to a future filled with hope and happiness.